Most people go through their entire lives assuming they are fairly standard. Normal sleep schedule, normal eyes, normal reflexes, nothing particularly unusual about the way their brain or body works. And then one day they realize that something they have been doing their entire life, something they assumed everyone does, is actually extremely rare. That moment of realizing you might be weirder than you thought is one of the most genuinely interesting things that can happen to a person. And this video is designed to give you that moment. We are going through 7 human traits today. 7 things that some people have and most people do not, that range from mildly unusual to genuinely extraordinary. Some of them are genetic. Some of them are neurological. Some of them are so rare that researchers are still trying to fully understand them, and at least one of them, if you have it, means you are experiencing a dimension of reality that most humans literally cannot access. By the end of this video, you might discover that you are considerably rarer than you ever thought. Subscribe to Freud Mind as we get into it. This one is worth staying for. The first trait is one that affects somewhere between 18 and 35% of the population, which makes it not rare in terms of numbers, but almost completely unknown in terms of awareness. Most people who have it have never heard it has a name. They have just always assumed everyone does it. It is called photic sneeze reflex, or, and researchers clearly had fun with this one, ACHOO Syndrome, which stands for Autosomal Compelling Helio-Ophthalmic Outburst Syndrome. Someone in a lab somewhere spent time making that acronym work, and it shows. Here is what happens. You walk out of a dark building into bright sunlight, or you look up at a bright light source, and you sneeze. Sometimes once, sometimes multiple times in a row. It is immediate, it is reflexive, and if you have it, you have probably been doing it your entire life without ever questioning it, because it feels completely normal. Why would stepping into sunlight not make you sneeze? That is just what happens, right? Wrong. For roughly 65 to 80% of people, looking at a bright light does nothing to their nose whatsoever. The sneeze reflex and the visual system are entirely separate. The reason it happens in people who have ACHOO syndrome comes down to a cross-wiring of nerve signals in the brain. The trigeminal nerve, which controls sensation in the face, including the sneeze reflex, runs very close to the optic nerve, which processes visual input. In people with photic sneeze reflex, a sudden bright light stimulus that activates the optic nerve bleeds over into the trigeminal nerve, triggering the sneeze reflex as a side effect. The brain essentially confuses an intense visual signal for a nasal irritation. It is entirely genetic, autosomal dominant, meaning if one of your parents has it, you have a 50% chance of having it too. It is completely harmless, and it has been documented in medical literature since the time of Aristotle, who noticed that looking at the sun made him sneeze and wrote about it, apparently not realizing this was a personal quirk rather than a universal experience. If you sneeze when you step into sunlight, welcome to a genetic club that has been quietly operating for thousands of years. The second trait is one you can check for right now, and most people do not know to look for it. Some people are born with a double row of eyelashes, an actual second row of eyelashes growing behind the first one, from the inner edge of the eyelid where the oil glands normally sit. The condition is called distichiasis, and it is extraordinarily rare in humans. It affects an estimated 1 in 10,000 people, though some researchers believe it is underdiagnosed because many people simply do not notice. The reason this happens goes back to developmental biology. During fetal development, the cells that form the eyelid differentiate into specific types. Some become skin cells, some become the meibomian glands that produce the oily layer of your tear film, and some become the hair follicles that produce eyelashes. In people with distichiasis, some of the cells that were supposed to become oil glands instead become hair follicles. A second set of follicles forms in the wrong location, and a second row of lashes grows. This sounds like it should be purely cosmetic, and sometimes it is. In mild cases, the extra lashes are soft enough and positioned well enough that they cause no problems at all. Some people who have it discover it completely by accident and think it is rather interesting. There is a genetic mutation associated with the condition in the FOXC2 gene, and it can run in families. But in more pronounced cases, the extra lashes grow inward, brushing against the surface of the eye with every blink. That is about as comfortable as it sounds. People with severe dystachiasis can experience chronic eye irritation, sensitivity to light, and potential damage to the cornea over time. Treatment in serious cases involves removing the extra follicles. The famous historical figure most often associated with this trait is Elizabeth Taylor, whose unusually striking eyes, which appeared to have an exceptionally dark, thick lash line, are believed by many to have been the result of dystachiasis, giving her a naturally doubled lash effect. Whether this is confirmed or speculation depends on who you ask, but it is a compelling explanation for a visual feature that many people noticed throughout her career. If you have ever been complimented on your unusually full lashes and never quite understood why your eyelids look different, it might be worth a closer look. The third trait is something you can test immediately. Right now, without looking in a mirror, try to move your ears. Not your whole head, just your ears. Wiggle them independently from the rest of your face. Roughly 10 to 20% of people can do this to some degree. Some fully, with obvious visible movement, some partially with just a slight twitch at the top or base of the ear. The majority of people cannot move their ears at all and find the very concept slightly baffling. The ear-moving muscles, the auricularis, are present in almost all humans. They are just non-functional in most people, vestigial muscles that we inherited from ancestors who used them extensively and that we have largely stopped using over millions of years of evolution. Most other mammals use their ear muscles constantly. Cats, dogs, horses, and many other animals can swivel their ears independently to locate the source of sounds, a significant advantage for detecting predators or prey. Humans lost this functional ability as we developed other cognitive tools for navigating the environment, and the muscles gradually became unnecessary. But in some people, the neural connection to these muscles remains active enough to allow voluntary control. The ability appears to have a genetic component, though it can also apparently be learned. Brain imaging studies on people who can move their ears have found something genuinely interesting. The motor cortex area associated with ear movement in these individuals shows different activation patterns from those who cannot move them. Specifically, more activation in the area connected to the auricular muscles, suggesting that the neural pathway is genuinely more developed rather than simply identical to the non-moving case and just randomly working. So if you can wiggle your ears, you're not just doing a party trick. You are demonstrating a functional neural connection that most humans have lost. The fourth trait is one that sounds like something people make up to justify bad habits, but it is completely real. Some people naturally sleep between 4 and 6 hours a night, feel completely fine, function at full cognitive capacity, and have done this their entire lives without ever trying to. These people are called natural short sleepers, and they carry a genetic variant that researchers have spent years trying to understand. The genes associated with natural short sleeping, including variants of the DEC2 gene and more recently identified mutations in other clock genes, appear to affect the efficiency of sleep rather than the need for it. Natural short sleepers get the same restorative work done in 4 to 6 hours that most people need 7 to 9 hours to accomplish. The sleep is more efficient, the cycles are compressed, and the individual wakes up genuinely rested. This is a critically different thing from a person who chronically sleeps 6 hours and feels fine. Most people who believe they are functioning well on insufficient sleep are not actually functioning as well as they think. Natural short sleepers are not in this category. They genuinely do not have the deficit in the first place. The trait is extraordinarily rare. Researchers estimate that true natural short sleepers make up somewhere between 1 and 3% of the population, possibly fewer. The DEC2 mutation, identified in a 2009 study by researchers at UC San Francisco, was found in a mother and daughter who both consistently slept around 6 hours and performed on cognitive tests, as well as people who had slept 8. Subsequent research has identified additional gene variants associated with the trait, building a picture of sleep efficiency that seems to be genuinely heritable. If you have genuinely slept 4 to 6 hours your whole life, woken up naturally without an alarm, and felt fine while everyone around you is clutching their coffee, you may be carrying one of the rarest genetic traits in this entire list. The fifth trait is the one that sounds like a superpower and functions like something considerably more complicated. Some people remember almost every day of their lives, not just significant events, not just birthdays and graduations and traumas, but ordinary Tuesdays. What they had for lunch on a random Wednesday 3 years ago. What they were wearing on a Thursday afternoon in November 4 years back. What was said in a conversation on a specific date they can identify immediately when asked. The condition is called highly superior autobiographical memory, or HSAM, and fewer than 100 people in the world have been formally identified and confirmed to have it. People with HSAM can typically be given a date and within moments tell you what day of the week it fell on. The memory is not reconstructed. It does not feel like trying to remember. It feels like looking, like accessing a recording. Researchers who study HSAM describe subjects as being able to recount autobiographical details with a vividness and accuracy that normal memory simply does not produce. The neurological basis is not fully understood, but brain imaging studies have identified structural differences in people with HSAM compared to people with typical memory. Regions associated with autobiographical memory, including parts of the temporal lobe and structures connected to obsessive thought patterns, appear enlarged or show different activation patterns. There also appears to be an overlap between HSAM and obsessive-compulsive tendencies. Many people with the condition report that the memory is not always voluntary. The past can intrude. A date passes, and the memories of that date from previous years surface automatically. This is the part that complicates the superpower framing. Remembering every day of your life sounds wonderful until you consider that it means remembering every embarrassment, every loss, every painful moment with the same clarity as the good ones. You cannot soften the past with time the way most people do. You cannot let things fade. Whether that is a gift depends enormously on the life being remembered. The sixth trait is one that affects somewhere between 2 and 4% of the population and almost certainly goes undiagnosed. It is called prosopagnosia, or face blindness. People with prosopagnosia cannot recognize faces, including, in severe cases, their own face in a mirror or a photograph. They may be able to see a face clearly, describe its features accurately, understand that they are looking at a human face, and still have no sense of who that person is. The facial recognition system that most humans use automatically and effortlessly, the system that lets you identify your closest friend across a crowded room in under a second, is simply not functioning in the way it does for most people. People with prosopagnosia navigate the social world by developing compensatory strategies, recognizing people by their voice, their gait, their hairstyle, the specific glasses they always wear, the context in which they usually encounter them. Many people with the condition go undiagnosed for much of their lives because they are skilled enough at these strategies that others do not notice the difficulty. They may seem slightly socially awkward or occasionally fail to recognize someone in an unexpected context, but the underlying cause is not identified. The condition exists on a spectrum. Mild prosopagnosia might mean struggling to recognize acquaintances in unexpected settings. Severe prosopagnosia can mean not recognizing family members you see daily if they change their hair, or failing to recognize yourself on video. The neurological basis involves the fusiform face area, a region of the brain specifically dedicated to processing faces that is highly developed in most humans. In people with prosopagnosia, This region either does not activate normally for faces or is not properly connected to the systems that link facial appearance to identity recognition. The condition can be acquired through brain injury or stroke or developmental, present from birth with no neurological damage. The developmental form runs in families, suggesting a genetic component, and research suggests it may be considerably more common than previously thought. If you have always quietly struggled to recognize people and assumed you were just bad with faces, you may have been dealing with a genuine neurological condition the entire time. The seventh and final trait is the most extraordinary on this list. And if you have it, you are not just rare. You are experiencing reality differently from approximately 99% of other humans in a way that is genuinely difficult to explain to anyone who does not have it. Most humans are trichromats. We have 3 types of cone cells in our eyes. One sensitive to red wavelengths, one to green, one to blue, and from the combination of signals these 3 types produce, we perceive the full range of human color vision. The color space visible to a normal human trichromat is already enormous. We can distinguish somewhere between 1 and 10 million different colors. Tetrachromats have 4 types of cone cells. A 4th type, typically sensitive to wavelengths between red and green, in the yellow-orange range, that most humans do not have. And with 4 cone types instead of 3, the theoretical color space available to a tetrachromat is not just a bit larger than normal color vision. It is estimated to be up to 100 times larger. The colors that a tetrachromat can distinguish, the subtle variations within what normal vision perceives as a single shade of, say, orange or yellow-brown, are genuinely invisible to people with standard trichromat vision. It is not that those colors are hard to see for a trichromat. They literally cannot be seen. The cone type required to distinguish them does not exist in the trichromat eye. Trying to explain what a tetrachromat sees to a normal vision person is a bit like trying to explain color to someone who has only ever seen in black and white. The vocabulary for it does not fully exist because most of the people who developed human color vocabulary do not see those distinctions. Tetrachromacy is caused by a genetic variant that affects the opsin genes on the X chromosome, the genes that determine which wavelengths each cone type is sensitive to. Because it is X-linked, it almost exclusively occurs in women. Men who have only one X chromosome are more likely to be colorblind, a deficiency in one cone type, while women who have 2 X chromosomes can carry a variant that produces an extra functional cone type. Estimates suggest somewhere between 2 and 5% of women may be tetrachromats, though identifying confirmed cases has proven difficult because having the extra cone type does not automatically mean the brain is processing the extra information. The neural system has to be wired to use it. The most famous confirmed tetrachromat is a British artist named Concetta Antico, who discovered her condition when she was tested and began painting what she perceives, vivid, layered color in surfaces that other people see as flat and uniform. She describes looking at a rock and seeing pink, orange, purple, and green, where others see gray. Looking at a leaf and seeing variations of green that most people cannot detect even when pointed to. 7 traits. Across all of them, the pattern is the same. Something that feels completely normal to the person who has it, because it has always been their baseline, and something that turns out on examination to be genuinely unusual. The human body and brain are full of variations like this. Traits that run in families, show up in a small percentage of the population, and go unnoticed for years or lifetimes because people assume their experience is the universal one. Most people never think to question whether the way they sneeze, or sleep, or remember, or see color is the standard experience, because for them, it is the only experience they have ever had. But standard is rarer than it looks. And the things that make your particular experience slightly different from the norm are often the most interesting things about you. Like and subscribe to Freud Mind for more. there is plenty more where this came from.